Okay, welcome back to the Are You Strong show. I don't know if the right word is extraordinary or special guest on the show today. Before I say his name, I just want to read off his accolades. Head football coach with 4 ECAC championships, 5 bowl appearances, 2-time coach of the year, winningest coach in school history. And this is the one that stands out to me the most, and is 207 all-conference athletes during his career. I mean, that is just incredible. So with that, join me in welcoming Coach Dan Garrett. Dan, how you doing?
Good morning, Jeff. Thanks for having me on. You're too nice with your praise over there, but I appreciate the nice introduction.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot more. It's just the list is just too long. It might take 20 minutes to read them all off, but I figured let me hit the highlights.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah. So you and I have gotten to know each other a little bit over the last year or so. And I mean, you're running a fantastic program at Kean University, and you've been there for almost going on 2 decades now. But it's before we get rolling, because I have 100 questions I could ask you, talk to you all day. But can you tell the audience a little bit about, your background? I know you played at Montclair, and then what inspires you to go to play college sports, which is difficult as hell, and then to turn that into a career of coaching?
Yeah, I think a lot of people talk about their purpose, right, and their why. When I was 21 years old, I knew that I could not live my adult life without football in it. And what a lot of people don't know, when I left Montclair State, I had an opportunity done playing wise that Rick Giannicola asked me in my end of the year meeting, hey, do you want to coach? And didn't hesitate, didn't even never thought about it before. But when he asked that, it was just an emphatic yes, absolutely. Didn't ask about what position I was coaching, didn't ask how much money I was making. I was just like, heck yeah, coach, let's go. And then from there, that blossomed into, figuring out that I really loved it. And when I was 21, 22, 23, you think you know a lot about football. I was surrounded by phenomenal people, great system. I learned from Billy Johnson, who was a long time defensive coordinator up there. And I implemented all his things. And I just had great players. And at 25 years old, I was named the D coordinator at Montclair State. And that's where I really knew I wanted to make a living out of it. But as you know, in this profession, it's hard to really climb a ladder without knowing people or being a Division I guy. And I didn't even know what a graduate assistant was back in the day. Like nowadays, if you want to stay in this profession, you go be a GA and you spend time under people. So, being at Montclair State for 7 years as a coach, in 2002, my brother and I, who's younger than me and also played at Montclair, we took the Port Authority police exam. And I took it because a lot of my family on my father's side is Port Authority people. And I was like, all right, yeah, I mean, I know it's a great career path, pension, et cetera, et cetera. So I took it with not really wanting to do it, but I took it with my brother. We passed it. We were ready to go into the same academy together.
Wow.
In January of 2003, I interviewed for the D coordinator job at Kean, and I had a choice to make. We were supposed to start the academy in March, and I chose to go to Kean University, be a full-time coordinator in the state of New Jersey, where I grew up 20 minutes from home, and I grew up in Clifton, and passed up, quote unquote, the golden ticket, right? The golden ticket of a 6-figure pension, 20 and done, all those things. But my purpose and my why, I knew I loved football, and I could not live, in my opinion, without football in my life.
Wow. So did your brother go on to be a police officer?
Yep, and he's retired. He's retired already.
You got to get him on your staff.
I do, but he's got a family of his own. He lives in Verona.
Okay.
He's well. His wife's a teacher in Belleville, so they have 3 kids, and life, right? Life gets crazy. So
yeah.
He actually holds a record at Montclair State. He has the most consecutive starts, 42 consecutive starts as an offensive lineman.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that still stands today.
Still stands today. Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, let's back up for a second. Montclair, and I think when you and I met the first time, I have such admiration for D3 athletes. And the reason being is the money, right? They don't get money. They don't get athletic scholarships. Now they might get academic money and things like that because they're grades, but from an athletic standpoint, obviously you know a heck of a lot more about it than I do. they don't get money for playing the sport like a Division II or a one. And, I was very fortunate in my playing days, I got a scholarship to play. And there were times when I was playing, Dan, that I'm like, what am I doing here? This is so difficult. This is so hard. Like, it's like, if there was a love for the game, but then there was times where like, man, can I keep doing this? But the money, when you say, hey, listen, they're paying for you to be here. If you stop playing, you lose the money. How are you going to stay? And it's a whirlwind in your head. But can you talk as a D3 athlete yourself and as a coach recruiting those young men? What does it take to really play a D3 in your heart and in your mind?
Well, the first thing I say on recruiting visits now to parents and families and kids, because of the world we live in, and a lot of people diminish the Division III value. I say, listen, I'm a proud Division III product. And I mean that in the most sincere, genuine form, because, if nowadays, if kids can't compete on social media with getting, putting it out there like, hey, I'm an FBS kid, or I'm an FCS kid, or a D2 kid, like it's almost like they think D3 is recreation. But, we're talking about kids who really have a true love for the game, number one. And it's gotten harder and harder financially, because the inflation of the cost of even the state schools, in the last 20 years has risen drastically. So when you talk about, when I first get to Kean in 2003, we're probably talking about the total cost of tuition, room and board, somewhere around $11,000 total. And now today in 2024, we're talking about, 30,000 plus. So the bottom line is, we have a lot of kids who need to either work part-time jobs, work overnight shifts. So when you talk about driven, you talk about goal-orientated, there's so many kids who do that to make it happen, and families make it happen. And there's a financial commitment and sacrifice. And I'll use the word sacrifice because it's not easy for families. We've had more kids in the last 4 or 5 years who can't stay at Kean because of financial costs. And that's not something against Kean. It's just the reality of life. What this thing is. There's no freebie. And if you're a blue collar family and mom and dad, or you have a 2-parent household and they make just enough money to not get any financial aid, you're looking at all loans, unless you're, like you said, a great student and you can get some academic money. But even our highest academic package is if you're the best of the best students, you're going to get full tuition, right? So that's awesome. And that's $12,000 to $13,000. But if you want to live on campus and you're not living in a 20-mile radius of Kean, where you can commute and not really put yourself out there with travel and all those things, there's still going to be a big financial commitment to live on campus and come up with that bill. So yeah, I think the challenge is this, right? Like you just said, everyone who plays any level of any football always questions, man, do I really want to keep doing this? Especially during preseason camp, especially if you're in the middle of the season and you're not playing. Yeah. Like, it's just human nature to find comfort and ease. And so like, we really push the limits. It's financial. Sometimes it's a physical, sometimes it's an emotional, sometimes it's a mental component to all these kids. And there's a lot that's going on in these kids' lives. And listen, right, post-COVID, everyone's experiencing more and more of a mental component than ever before. Yeah. So in lack of a coping mechanism or skill set to deal with some of these things. So it's very hard, it's challenging, but we're also wired that the human being can do hard things if we let it. Yeah. Instead of always giving them an out or lowering a standard, like, let's try to meet the standard. Let's not lower it. Let's try to say, hey, you can do this. Like, you can do hard things, and you have a support system here to help you academically, mentally, and athletically. So, it's a big picture that I wish more people had more of an understanding on, because social media just makes it seem like, hey, if you're not getting this scholarship, you're not important in sports. But like I tell people, man, proud D3 product. I wouldn't trade my years at Montclair State for anything.
No way. And when you were playing, you guys had a really good team, right?
Yeah, we were good. And again, we had, for lack of a better, I came from a Division II school, right? My freshman year, I go out to a Division II school in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and I met some great people. But my point to saying that is, I come home to Montclair State and I walk around the first day of camp and I'm like, where am I? Like, these guys are just as big and just as strong in 1992, 93 as I saw at a Division II program where I thought they were huge. And I'm like, man, I'm in for it here. And I get there and I'm like, holy cow, like, there's not much of a difference.
Yeah. So you mentioned before the mental side of things. Mm-hmm. How do you as a head coach, how do you handle when a young man comes to you and it's just having difficult times? It's like you said, financially, like they're trying to figure out how to pay the bills. They got to commute. They might not be staying on campus. They're not sure if they want to stay on the team or not, but it's in their best interest to
Yeah.
stay on the team, stay connected, because if they don't, it could go down a different path.
Yeah.
How do you handle that?
Yeah, man. First off, I really mean this, and anyone who's ever coached me hopefully can validate this. I try to be first and foremost empathetic, right? Because every kid that walks in there's going to be a different story, a different background, a different support system at home. And I really just try to put myself in their shoes and I listen. And then compassion comes into it, because I do know that if they stay, right, the structure of our program is going to help them graduate. The graduation and the degree are going to help you and help your family in the long term, in the bigger picture. So really trying to get the young man to understand the big picture, because when they're in it at the time, all they see is, man, I can't do this. My family's going through that. We can't afford it. And it does look dark, and it does look like, and there's no hope in sight and there's no light at the end of the tunnel. So I really just try to listen and then try to put the big picture in play, because if you can fight through this and you can figure out a way financially, or you could figure out a way mentally to combat some demons you might be going through because you might want to quit for other reasons, like just getting them to understand, like, you could do hard things. And if it's a physical or mental thing, like getting people to understand that. We talk about it in preseason a lot. The human being, is wired to find comfort and ease. Like, we want to search it out. Like, we want to find it. We want to lay down with it. We want to just hold on to it. And we don't want to do anything that's uncomfortable. So I think getting them to understand that the differences between, all right, is this a financial thing? All right, then that's different. And we got to figure it out. If there's no plan and you can't get a loan and you can't do X, Y, and Z with a payment plan, those are the harder ones. We've lost more of those kids the last 5-10 years. And it stinks. And I just try not to be bitter. I try to put that in, like, if I was there, like, and honestly, like, if that was my son, like, how would my son want to be talked to in that moment? So I think that's really important, because right now, when you think about college athletics, 18 to 22-year-olds who decided to play college football, like, I always want to make the assumption that this is the most important time in their life. And this is the most important thing to them.
Yeah.
And if they're losing it because it's financial, I don't want to ever come across as bitter. Like, what do you mean you can't pay? Like, who am I? Like, I'm not paying your bills. Your family has to deal with this. And if you can't or don't want to come out with $80,000 of loans at 23 years old, I certainly understand that. But
yeah,
I think the conversation is empathy first. And hopefully by that time, I've already had a relationship established with the young man. So they understand it's not just, sitting there and trying to shoo him out of my office, and then compassion by, hey, what can we do? Is there anything we can do? And then just trying to come to grips with some type of plan. And if there's no plan, hey, man, look, I wish you the best. And I mean it. And if it could work out, you can find your way back. The door's open because we're doing it the right way. And I think that's what kids don't understand now. Like, I just had a kid text me last night, right? 12 days out from camp, 2 years in our program, made huge strides in, like, all this time and investment. There's a lot. And text me, hey, just basically saying, Coach, I know you have expectations on me this year. I'm supposed to be a starter, but I'm not coming back.
Oh.
In a text message. Like, huh?
Yeah.
Like, no, like, you need to have tough conversations. And that's really what I try to teach my own kids, because, like, these kids are growing up on this device.
Right.
And it's easy to send a text and it's easy to send an email. But when kids come to my office and they have the conversation and they're emotional about it and they're genuine, like, if they can never figure it out, well, the door's always going to be open, no matter how it takes. But when it's just, hey, sorry, I'm not playing this year. Well, if you do figure it out, guess what? You left me high and dry, and all you could do was send a text message. Well, in life, you're going to learn that, hey, you just burned a bridge.
Yeah, it doesn't work. It doesn't work.
So we try to teach life lesson through this thing, and that's really what we try to do, prepare them for life, because things are going to get hard in life. And if you quit now, you're going to quit down the road in life. When it gets hard, when you have a family or you have a wife, a kid, a mortgage payment.
Oh my God.
You have to figure it out.
Well, you mentioned before, treat him like your son.
Yeah.
Right. Well, you have a son, and he's a college football player. Right. Can you talk about that relationship? He doesn't play on your team.
Yeah.
He plays at a different school. How does that dynamic work? When he's playing at a different school, you're a head coach of a team, and that's got to be pretty cool to talk to and listen to and be part of. But there's got to be some weird stuff that happens too, being right that, like, he sees things differently. You're a coach. It's got to be pretty cool and pretty different.
Yeah, I think, so we have three sons, and my oldest is in college right now, just started his second year at Monmouth, and my middle guy is going to be a sophomore in high school. And I think what we try to do while they're in high school is try to teach them the lessons that what football can provide for you, right? As far as a work ethic and accountability, being on time and being punctual, like all the things that to try to be top 10% in all of it, work ethic, whatever it might be. So when we talk about the relationship I have with all my sons, but this one in particular, it's hard because when he's in college, like I'm never going to get to see him play on a Saturday unless our season's over. Right. And that's just the sacrifices that coaches make.
Right.
So what we try to do is, and listen, where he ended up picking, there was a lot of good schools that recruited him. I couldn't be happier. The guys at Monmouth are awesome. He's happy there. He's flourishing academically. He's made a name and reputation for himself in 1 year, just about the type of young man he is. Forget about football for a second, right?
Right.
Type of young guy he is, how mannerable, how respectful, how his work ethic is. And that's what we want. Like, that's what we're trying to raise, right? Whether you end up becoming a starter, an All-American, a backup, like, and those conversations are happening because as an athlete, right, you're going to feel certain things. We all in camp, right? So when you're going through it, those conversations are awesome because not only am I a dad, but I have some knowledge of what he's going through because I've talked to so many other people's kids about this over the last 27 years.
Right.
When they come to me and say, "Hey, coach, how come this?" Or "Coach, I don't think I want to play football anymore." Or "Coach, I don't think I love football anymore." Whatever it might be. Right? But now it's my kid. So what the different perspective for me has really been is now I've always tried to treat other people's kids like my son, but now that my sons are at that age, now I really am more in tuned and aware, and I have a greater perspective on it because he is that age and he is on his own. And I do trust those guys over there that they're treating him the same way that I would want them to treat him, expect them to treat him. So, it's really cool, but it's also sometimes frustrating because sometimes I tell all of my kids what it really is, and they don't like the answer.
Yeah, well, it's sometimes they keep asking until they get what they want to hear.
Yeah,
and they don't listen to the truth. I don't want to say the truth, but the real answer that they need to hear.
Yeah, my great grandmother used to say a line. She goes, "True words." She used to say, "True words aren't always pretty, and pretty words aren't always true." Right. So when you talk about that, like if you're going to ask me the same thing I tell my players, like if you're going to come ask me why about something, like don't come in here and think I'm going to tell you what you want to hear. I'm going to tell you what you need to hear, and then it's up to you as an emotional being to figure out how you're going to internalize and then take it out of here. Are you going to be pissed off? Are you going to be angry? Or are you going to be like, "All right, coach, thank you for being honest with me. I know exactly what I need to do now, and I'm focused on doing it." Because that's it, right? Just be coachable. And that's really what I want my kids to be. Be coachable. And that's not easy, right? Being coachable in life isn't easy. Taking criticism and looking at it in a positive way, again, like human nature, you want to find comfort. That's not easy. Like you have to be able to be coachable and take the criticism and not take it personal. And as a coach, that's what I try to do. Like, I try to coach you without being demeaning. Like, you could be hard on a guy without being demeaning, derogatory. Like, I could coach you really hard. And again, I would hope that anybody I've ever coached could say, "Yeah, he was hard on us, but never demeaning."
Yeah. I tell you, I love that. True words aren't always pretty. That is so true. That's from your great grandmother, you said?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Wow. So that's been around for a little while.
Been around, and I never forgot that.
No, now you're probably passing it on to all your coaches.
All my coaches, all my players, everybody.
Yeah. So that's going to live forever.
Ever. And the biggest thing when you have conversations, right? I've always believed this, and I've not always lived it, especially as a younger coach. But less is more. When you communicate, you need to communicate clearly, because when you open this can up, right, and you start, chatty Cathy, and you just start verbally just going on a verbal dissertation, then the guys just hear what they want to hear. But when you're just very direct and very clear and exactly to the point without being demeaning, there's more of an ability for them to understand exactly what is being said to them, because it's not about the listening. Everyone listens. The dumbest animal in the forest hears noise, but are you comprehending?
Right. Are you taking it in?
Are you taking it in?
That's it. So looking at playing college football.
Yep.
Going back when we were playing and the current athletes today, how do you think, playing college football contributes to a young man's life and personal growth for after the game?
Oh man, Jeff, I believe this, and I've said this to anyone that's ever willing to listen to me. I think that football is the best single vehicle that I know to teach life lessons, right? Because all the things I just said about my own kids, what I want, like you need to have a work ethic, right? And if you have a work ethic, you have a shot, you have a chance to earn something. And when you have the work ethic, there's a discipline that comes with that, right? And in life, the more disciplined you are, the more success you're going to have. But also, like when you talk about work ethic and discipline, it doesn't mean things are going to go your way. Hard work does not guarantee you anything.
No.
So you better be, and you're going to learn to be resilient. You're going to learn to be persistent, right? And you think about life and what we've been through with all our experiences, right? But you also learn in football to be a team member. And I think that's the biggest thing today that I can't stand more than anything in college, especially football, is like back when we played, and I hate saying that because we sound old, and we are, but at the same time, like when you joined a team, like it was about the team and it was about your individual part. What's my responsibility? What's my obligation to my team and my teammates, period. And somewhere along the line now, and I don't know if it's the transfer portal, if it's NIL, a little bit of everything, whatever, social media. Now it's more about, all right, what's my rights? What am I entitled in? What are you going to give me?
Yeah.
You know, and I am, and I mean this as genuinely and sincere as I can. I am so happy to be at a Division III level, and there's some phenomenal humans, phenomenal coaches at those higher levels. I just don't know how they manage it. I don't know how they deal with it because you have 105 to 120 guys, and like there's a lot of egos, man. And I've always been raised like when you join a team, your ego has to be dissolved into the team. You give up your ego for the betterment of the team.
Yeah, check it at the door.
Yeah. So like, and then you talk about what else is what else does college football do for them? And you become gritty. You build mental toughness. You know, you learn how to coexist with people. You learn how to be. You might not like somebody on your team, but you're going to respect them because they're your teammate. And it's not about liking or disliking. It's about getting along for the best interest of the group. So I think that's life because these kids are going to come across somebody somewhere down the road. Hey, I don't like what my boss is telling me, so I'm just not going to go to work today. Well, keep showing not showing up to work and see if you have a job that you can provide for your wife and kids and keep a roof over their head. Like, so, you know, I think all those things equate to the sports, right? You build self-discipline, you build punctuality, you build responsibility and accountability. And those are life lessons that serve everyone well for every minute of their life that they're done playing sports.
That's awesome. So you're on the team. Just think about that from a coach's perspective, right? How you got a bunch of guys on the team. How do you help them handle the pressures and challenges that they deal with every day? You know, I know there's all kinds of things, but as a coach, you know, I know you mentioned before, well, you're empathetic, you're compassionate, you listen, you help them get better. But how do you help them handle it themselves personally?
Yeah, I think that's probably the most important question that anyone could probably answer. And I don't know if there's a one way to do it approach here, but here's what I try to do, right? I've always been a servant leader. And I think the more that you can let kids know, like I'm not chasing a logo or a salary, right? So this isn't about me being 10-0 every year so I can get a step to get to the next level, to get to this level, to get to that level. And for me, what I do is try to build a relationship that's whether you're the starter or whether you're the fifth string guy. I want to try to build a relationship that's built on trust, right? And trust is not an easy word to throw around because trust takes time, but also you can screw trust up in one split second. So I think to get them to understand this thing, it's built on a relationship that's genuinely built on love and trust and respect, right? And then from there, how do we manage them? All right, well, what are you going through? Are you just not happy that you're not playing? Are you not happy because you can't manage your emotional state? Or are you having some difficulties with some mental stuff that you can't handle? And I think that's the question you have to answer. And then from there, you know, it's letting them know that when we build this culture intentionally, it's on core values. And again, to talk about trust again and respect, like your core values can't be BS. Like you better live your core values as the head coach, right? Because every coach is a leader. And when you ask kids to lead and follow, like you better be leading first and you better lead every day and you better not be a hypocrite. So, you know, for me, it's really about trying to get them to build a relationship with me, regardless of their quote unquote status or what level they're on in the depth chart, and really getting them to understand that it's bigger than football. And I mean this too, like when when you have a what, a how, and a why in your culture, like my why is not to try to get another job anymore. When I was 25, my goal was to be a Division I coach. That's not the goal anymore. My goal, and the reason why I stayed at Kean, obviously, is a two-pronged deal. You know, when I realized this is what I wanted to do, and I had a wife and a family, I didn't want to keep moving around the country and have my kids have animosity or bitterness towards me because daddy wanted to be a football coach and we're moving every 3, 4, 5 years.
Right.
So once I come to grips with that, then it was all right, well, what do I want to establish here? And the reality was, like, if you come to our program, I want you leaving here as a better man. All those things we just talked about, right? You know, building the grit, building the mental toughness, understanding your responsibility. So I think if you get them to truly understand that you're sincere in those things and the culture is relationship driven, and you could trust the daily process of trying to get them better, right? Not the outcome, but trust the process of becoming a better student, becoming a better man, becoming a better football player. And I think when we could focus on the process, then it's about consistent habits, consistent choices that I do believe lead to a chemistry, a synergy of, you know, a better locker room, a better relationship with your coach, and they understand that you have their best interests in hearts. Because I do believe that the why that I just stated to you, I think the why always dictates what you do and how you do it, right? Because if it's relationship driven, when you see the fifth string wide receiver looking like he's not himself today, and you recognize that, then you go over there and you don't leave it alone. You go ask him, hey, you all right today? Hey, what's going on? Hey, you want to talk about it? Like, in that little thing just promotes all those things I talked about, because, oh, coach does care. Hey, all right, maybe I'm not starting, but he's noticing I'm not myself. So I just think that those things are how I try to do it, and just to try to be as consistent as I possibly can be day in and day out. Not too high, not too low, so they know what to expect when they see me.
Well, you know, everything you just said, I witnessed. And you probably wonder, what do you mean? Well, you gave me the privilege of having an opportunity to speak to your team a couple months ago. And we showed up at 7:30 in the morning, you know, and your team showed up on time, dressed, ready to go. But what I noticed was you personally and your staff hugging, shaking hands, slapping backs. The connection you have with your team, I don't think a lot of coaches have, you know, and for me to sit there and observe that, and also watch your teammate or your young men, you know, high-fiving, hugging, shaking hands, and their attitude is what I noticed was very good, high positive level at 7:30 in the morning, where most college students, where are they at 7:30 in the morning?
Yeah.
They're typically sleeping. So you know, I give you tremendous accolades, not just the ones you get for all the winning that you do, but for being able to, like you said before, you said, you know, lead first. You know, and I personally watched you do that, you know, and I watched you lead your coaches in doing that, you know, which it all trickles down.
Yeah.
You know, so it's cool to just to be part of that and to watch that and see that, you
Yeah.
know, and you can tell, Dan, that how you love what you do.
Yeah, and look, man, there's a lot of obstacles and there's a lot of things that are gonna maybe try to get us off our path. But the thing that is constant, and the thing that I love the most, right? I love football, but I love the players, man.
Yeah,
I love my guys. If you're gonna say yes to Kean, like, I'm all in on you.
yeah, yeah,
Like, and again, that's what hurts more when I talked about the kid who just texted me, you know, last night saying 12 days away from camp, man. Like, I'm all in on you for 2 years.
yeah,
I'm giving you my heart and my soul, and I'm stopping everything when you need to come in the office, or I'm taking the time to notice that you're not yourself and what's going on. And like, I just get a text. You're just gonna
yeah,
text me. So like, that's the thing I love. But at the same time, like, it's anything else, right? When you do that, you're making yourself vulnerable. So when those
yeah,
instances happen, the hardest part for me is trying not to let that affect the next kid that comes in the door who needs that.
yeah. Because sometimes you might say, hey, like I'm not giving my all to the next guy because I'm just going to get burned again.
Yeah, and you know you are. That's the
Yeah,
thing. It's not even if, it's
right.
when. You know
Yeah,
you are. And,
you
and
know.
that's the harder part.
Yeah,
Developing this is so much more challenging because the lack of the coping mechanism skills these young kids have. And who knows, right? We can go on that rabbit holes about Well, COVID, their freshman year, they
Yeah.
lost the relationship as far as the socialization. They lost this because they got pushed through. But whatever it is, there's just a difference in coping mechanisms. Kids
Yeah.
aren't different, but there is a different skill set that's coming out right now that
Yep.
they can't handle things.
Yeah. The world has changed since 2000, or since 2020,
Yeah, 2021.
the
Yeah,
2021. The COVID just changed everything. And I see it everywhere, and it's a shame. Now, some people have benefited from it, have grown and developed from it, but a
yeah,
lot haven't. So I'm going to ask you a two-pronged question.
yep.
Is what advice can you, as a coach, is one question, like as a head football coach, what advice can you give to the high school guys now that are thinking about or have aspirations of playing at the next level? And as a player, when you were playing, I know we keep saying, hey, back when we were playing, but
Yeah,
back when we were playing, it was different. The rules were different.
yeah,
Camps were different. What you can and can't do were different.
yeah.
So as a player, what advice can you give as a coach and as a former player to the young aspiring college or high school kids that are aspiring to play in college?
Be intentional and be deliberate with everything you do, right? What does that mean? You want to play college football? Be intentionally, deliberately, do things well in school, because without the grades, you're handcuffing yourself and you're limiting yourself. I was a kid that hated school, right? I didn't like school. I didn't like English. I didn't like math. I hated everything, but I was deliberate and intentional about making sure what I had to do to give myself an opportunity to get into college and at the next level, even though I didn't enjoy it. So it's not about your feelings of what you like or what you don't like, but you have to be deliberately intentional with all of it, because if you want to play college sports, I got a newsflash for you. Nothing feels good about that. The only good thing about sports is the win.
Yeah.
Like training for 2 hours doesn't feel good.
No.
Lifting for an hour or an hour and 15 minutes never doesn't necessarily feel good when you're doing it. Conditioning on the field doesn't feel good. Preparing your body doesn't feel good. Like get out of your feelings, right? Your comfort level is not a reference point for the things you need to do. It's not. So if
No.
you want to do something, like you have aspirations, don't let your comfort level dictate what you're supposed to do. So that's the one thing. And I think if you want to do this, everything that you want is on the other side of hard. So, you want to take an easy way out today? Well, you just washed away all the hard work from yesterday. You want to take the easy way today? That's going to lead to a harder path. You're going to have more challenges that are going to present themselves down the road, versus if you take the hard way now and you do things that are uncomfortable and you learn how to manage those things, and you're going to lead to an easier path. That things are going to all of a sudden line up for you. Things are going to be a little easier for you because you've already did the challenging things to put yourself in a position for the success or the place or the path that you want to be on. So I think the biggest thing when you talk about that is, like, you just need to understand we're all free to make our own choices, right? We live in America, but what we're not free from is the consequences of those decisions, right? So I think that is really, really important. And the more you have self-discipline and the more dedicated you are with those behaviors, at the end of the day, you'll have more of the things that you want, as long as you continue to refuse to give up when it gets hard. If you fall down 9 times, get up 10. Like, if you could do those things, I think, that's what you need to do as a football player at any level. And I think that if you want to act the way, like you said something before, we were talking about a mindset. I think the more you act the way you want to become, and it's like it's a positive self-affirmation. But if you act the way you want to become, you have more of a chance to become that way. So that instills more confidence. That instills more of the hard work, the character that you need to have. That also, if you want to act like an All-American, well, then you can't not work out. Like, All-Americans don't miss workouts. They're not just talented. They don't miss. They work harder than other people. So if you act the way you want to become, again, things will have a funny way of working out for you. It's a mentality that you need to own. And the more consistent you can do that, because, oh man, probably close to 25 years ago, I read something called Character is Destiny, right? And it's all about, it starts with your thoughts. Everything that we have is a thought. So be careful of your thoughts, for your thoughts become your words. Be careful of your words, for your words become your actions. Be careful of your actions, for your actions become your habits. Be careful of your habits, for your habits become your character, and your character becomes your destiny. That's it. I mean, easier said than done, but that's it.
That's not even hard. That's not easy to say either, though. That was
No.
a lot. So let me ask you a silly off the topic question. This really isn't silly. I'm just listening to all these things coming out of your mouth, and it's oozing leadership, coaching, when's the book coming?
Oh man, if I had $1 for everyone to ask me that question, it's funny because like I said earlier, I didn't even know what a grad assistant was, but I wish I did back then because I'd have a
Right.
master's.
Okay.
Like I said, I don't have a master's. I hated school. So the book, if I can get someone to, if I can narrate it, and like you said, there's a different gap cost earlier. We were talking about if you just write a book and you hand it in and they fix it for you, or versus you narrate it and they interview
Yeah.
you. I think that I'm very fortunate and blessed to have been around some really good people, but the first two people that raised me the right way were my mom and dad. They raised me with an amazing core value system of family, an amazing system of, treat people how you want to be treated. My mom was a Catholic school teacher. They treated me to be, it didn't matter what people look like. It just mattered, hey, how did that person treat you, and treat them the same way? So I think that leadership, you're not born with it. It is learned. Like that old quote is, I believe it because I've always had those leadership abilities, but it's because of my upbringing. It's a core value system. It's being respectful. It's being mannerable. And when you can lead with empathy, I think people are willing to follow you. But then the more, I guess, the more you can show people that you're competent and that you're doing it yourself, and it's not just lip service, I think then you have more of a chance for actually people to not just buy into you, but want to follow you. And I've never been a boss. I've never been in the back whipping people. If I'm going to ask coaches to do something or players do something, I'm either doing it before them, done it before, I'm with them right doing it myself.
Core values keeps coming out.
Yeah.
And you keep talking about it, you keep promoting it, you keep focusing on it, and eventually you believe in it, and then the actions, take care of it.
Yeah. And we've had, our core values have changed over the years. Like we've just did an exercise in the spring, where I let the kids we had some meetings and they threw some things out there, and we've came up with our core values for this season. Whereas the previous 4, 5, 6 years, it was always, family. It was trust, family, on number one and number two. And then those were like the biggest things. And then whereas now it's like, we still have family in there, but they came up with an acronym, FIGHT. It's family, integrity, gratitude, hard work, and toughness. So like, I'm not a big social media guy. I usually post something once a day or puts a story up, but like everything sometimes now, what I'll post with all those things is fight, fight for it, fight to earn it. But that's what fight is for us. These kids, we spent probably close to 6, 7, 8 hours all over the course of 4 weeks building this thing. But in football, you got to fight.
Yeah.
In life, you're going to have to fight.
I love that. That is awesome. And it's a big difference, Dan, when you put the core values on the board and your team puts the core values on the board. Now they have ownership in it.
Yeah.
So and if they come up with that, that is something special.
Yeah.
Versus telling people, Yeah. But that's awesome.
And I hope this one sticks because that's what happened with our old core values. The group that we had now, that it was just, they inherited it, right?
Yeah.
Didn't mean as much to them as it did to the kids 6, 7 years ago who came up with it. Now this group came up with it, and I hope we can keep it for 4 or 5 years because number one, I really like it. I think that fight just triggers something in the brain. And the words behind fight obviously mean a little bit more, but I think if we can keep this one for a while, I'm really partial to it.
I love it. I mean, family, integrity, gratitude, hard work, and toughness.
Yep.
That is awesome. Now, do you have signs in the locker room? Do you have signs around? Are you going to do that?
So what we're going to do is we do player manuals, and we do an offensive playbook and a defensive playbook and special teams. So it's plastered all on that. So it's on them all the time. Because we don't have our own locker room and it's shared springtime with baseball and lacrosse, we don't necessarily do that because, again, right, we're more considerate than just plastering our own stuff up.
Right. Well, maybe we get the whole athletic program to use that acronym.
Yeah.
Right.
I would love, yeah, because you have to fight in life, man. And you got to fight for what you want. You got to fight to earn it. I mean, it just goes, you can go so many different directions. It covers everything.
It's awesome. I love that. I'm going to use that here.
I love it.
That's beautiful.
SIS, Jeff. Steal ideas strategically. It's not stealing when it's shared with you.
Yep. That's beautiful. Love it. Well, you'll see me posting that stuff all over the place now. So let's, again, I keep asking the questions around from a coaching perspective and from an athlete's perspective, because, you've been able to do both, which is great. So talk about, like, have you had any personal, setbacks in your athletic career when you were playing? And how about from, your long, illustrious coaching career, what typical setbacks do you face there?
Yeah, as a player, it was funny. We were just talking about this the other night with my boys before my oldest went to camp. They didn't know that I tore my ACL and MCL my
Oof.
junior year, and it was game 4 my junior year in college. It was played at William Patterson, and for me, I was having a great junior year at the time, and I was devastated.
Oof.
But I also didn't need surgery. I ended up finding out, getting the MRI, and it was grade 2 on each, so I didn't need the surgery. So I rehabbed my tail off for 5 weeks, and my goal was to come back for game 10 against Rowan, and I did, and that was awesome. So like, fight to do it, right? When you act the way you want to become, and it's not that you're going to always make this thing in the universe and make it happen when you can't necessarily, but if you really fixate on it, and that was my fixation. Like, everyone's like, I don't know if you're going to make it back for game 10, trainers, coaches. I'm like, well, I am. And I'm going to do everything humanly possible. And, it proves you can do hard things. Coaching, I mean, look, man, I think the biggest challenge with coaching, it depends what year and what era you're talking about. So to be a head coach in 3 different decades now, 06 all the way to 24, it just depends. There's always setbacks. There's always obstacles. The hardest one for me was this past fall. I mean, knowing more than I've ever known about coaching, and to not win a game, I talked to people. I was talking to my neighbor yesterday, he's a high school coach. And he's like, man, but you were just 1 or 2 plays away every game for having an okay season. I'm like, yeah, but the bottom line, we didn't. So when you don't win a game, that was really hard on me. And I hate using the word me. I really try not to use that at all in our program. I use us, we, team. But for me, that was the most challenging thing I've ever went through, mentally, emotionally, because when you sacrifice away from your own family as much as you do for the amount of time that coaches do, and to try to put your best foot forward, and not to have, quote unquote, it come to fruition in a win column, it's very challenging. I never experienced anything like it in my life, and people always said that if you stay in coaching long enough, you'll experience all the highs, you'll experience all the lows. I just never thought I'd feel that low. So I leaned on my faith, my religion. Like I said, my mom was a Catholic school teacher, so I really used my faith in the good Lord above to get me through that most challenging time. The support system I have with my wife and my kids, they were phenomenal. They were my rock. They helped me through it. But it was my faith and my family that really got me through that challenge. It was not easy.
Oof. Yeah, losing is not easy.
Nope.
Just losing one game is not easy, right?
Correct.
So can we kind of dive into that just a little bit? I know it seems like the toughest part of your entire athletic career,
Yep. No
right?
doubt.
But as a leader, as the head man, as the guy in charge, how the heck did you handle your players and help them deal with it?
Yeah. The best thing about last season, it's going to sound crazy, we played our best football last 2 weeks of the season. So I think from the head man's standpoint of leadership, right, I was consistent. I was real. I was genuine. I never stood up in front of the team and made up things to make it sound good. So I think it starts there. And I think recognizing some of the things that us as coaches didn't do well, and admit some of those things to our players, because it wasn't necessarily a lack of talent. It was a lack of cohesiveness. It might have been a lack of buy-in. There was a lot of things that we could have done better with the locker room that caused the kids to not be as tight as some of the teams we've had in the past. And when kids don't want to play for one another, or they don't want to play with the guy next to them, I don't care how much talent you have, that's where we suffered. And until we made some changes and maybe some personnel, maybe we got a little bit harder as we normally would have back in my early days of coaching, mixing up the concern for mental health with coaching hard. I think we started coaching hard again, and by games 9 and 10, even though we didn't have the result we wanted, we played our best football. We had opportunities to win those games. The sideline was electric. The kids were cheering and shouting and really supporting one another. So those are all the things that were awesome, because typically by that time you got kids quitting. It's only getting worse. And we played our best ball week 9 and 10. So as hard as it was, I think it was the consistency. It was the genuineness. It was being real. It wasn't sugarcoating. It was trying to deliver messaging that was not just, hey, let's 10 seconds and get it on. There were some meetings where I'd talk in a team meeting for 15, 16 minutes, and I would read off of something so I didn't miss something. I would tell them, hey, look, I got to read off it because I don't want to miss any of the messaging I'm giving you, because I think it's really important you hear this.
It's leadership all the way. You
It's
know,
easy to lead, man, when everything's going well.
yeah,
Easy to lead. It's easy to be a leader when everything's going well. They don't need you when things are going well. They need you when things aren't going well.
yeah. And what it sounds like, Dan, is you take ownership in everything. You know, you're not a finger pointer. You're not, hey, it's my assistant coaches. Ah, the captains are no good. Oh, the whatever. It's you're like, hey, man, I'm in charge. You know,
Yeah.
I'm taking ownership and leadership, and we're gonna, however, whatever we got to do to right the ship, we'll figure it out.
Self-autopsy, man. I
Yeah,
don't think people do that enough. It's easy to point fingers. Again, human nature, right? We said it earlier. The best thing about me is I try not to take the easy way. I've never been an easy way guy out. You know, I've always, again, upbringing. The way I was raised, that's not what we do. You know, we don't
yeah,
do it. Right? You look inside first, and if I'm a leader, what could I have told the defense or offense to do better? What should I have done better? What could I have told them to change? You know, and I think it all starts with you as a leader. And I think society, you know, what you got to do is turn the TV on now again and see.
oh,
It's easy to point fingers.
oh my God,
Just need a leader who wants to take ownership. And at the end of the day, even when we win, I don't take credit. All those years we've ever won, it's this kid, it's that kid, it's the players. I don't play anymore.
yeah,
My job isn't to play anymore. My job is to make sure by Saturday I don't have to do a damn thing. It's those kids out there playing. We got to
yeah,
make sure that the 355 other days that we're doing things the right way to give us a shot on 10 days.
yeah. So let's talk about that for a second. As far as you said, the players, right? But let's talk about the support of the players, the support staff. Let's talk about the people in your career. You don't have to throw any names out there if you
Yep.
don't want to. If you want to, great. But the people over your that helped, contribute to your successes, that helped you become not just who you are as a coach, but as a leader. And then talk about some of the players that were out there and the role they played in pulling other people up,
Yeah.
into making them leaders.
You know, like I said earlier, Billy Johnson was my defensive coordinator, so he really helped my coaching career. But a guy that really had nothing to do about defense. There's two guys really, and Richie Nicola just by default. But Richie O'Connor, who was an assistant coach at Montclair State, I tell him all the time, whether it's over a holiday text or a Father's Day text, like I thank him all the time because he was the hardest guy to ever play for. He was demanding. He was tough. You could never do it good enough for him, but I learned so much from that. Like I have so much respect for him as a player that I took that with me in every part of my life as a coach. John Zaneski, who was an old high school coach at Belleville for a while, when I was a first year D coordinator at 25, John was probably in his 60s already, retired, was an assistant coach at Montclair State. He was coaching linebackers for us, and he taught me all about organization. And I think, so off the field, the organizational piece, Richie O'Connor on the field, how he handled players and meetings, those two guys really had a lot to do with how I coach. The players over the years, God, man, there's been so many. We've been so blessed with so many great players who bought in, who are now great dads and great people and great husbands. I mean, the list can go on and on. I mean, there's too many kids to name. Over my first, from 2006 to 2018, and even in even 2022, 2023, the kids who just left, there's so many kids who are even now starting their careers as state troopers, and like I can't even begin to explain the amount of how far deep the players go to making us who we are. I mean, because
Yeah.
even one of the kids who grew up in your town, Dante Capizzoli, came down a couple of weeks ago, worked out with me at 5:30 in the morning. And he says, Coach, just so you know, I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't trade it for anything. I would still go to Kean. I know we didn't win as much as we all would have liked, but I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Right.
He goes, I wouldn't trade it.
How awesome is that when they come back?
Amazing. I mean, these kids, I worked out with him a couple weeks ago. I worked out with another guy, Dave Jimerson, not long ago, who's a 2018 guy. I'm working out with Jamie Pratt Monday morning, a kid who graduated 2011 team. He's on vacation down here on Point in Belmar. We're going to meet at a gym down in Bradley Beach. It just lets you know you're doing it the right way.
But think about that for a second. What you just said, your ex, shouldn't say ex, former players, they're not like, hey, coach, let's get a beer. And
Yeah.
they're like, let's go to the gym.
Yeah, at 5:30 in the morning.
Yeah. And you're like, let's go.
Let's go.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your players who have aspirations for being a coach.
Yeah.
What kind of advice can you give to this? There's so many people out there. Hey, they see your life. I want that. they don't really know what goes on behind the scenes, right?
No.
What kind of advice can you give the young men or women who aspire to be a college coach? I don't care if it's 3-2-1 division. And what can you tell them to be ready for and be prepared for?
Jokingly, the first thing I'll say now is, are you sure? And the second thing I'll tell them, look, man, this football thing has provided me everything in my life, right? I mean, everything that I have, my house, my family, I support, I everything has been provided from football for me. But there's a part of that too that you got to understand. Like, if you're going to coach, there's a lot of sacrifices that you cannot just escape. Whether you're winning or you're losing, the season is what it is. Like, you're going to miss a lot of things that people are not going to understand, right? And whether that's funerals, I've missed funerals because family members have passed away in Florida, and I couldn't go because I'm in camp, or it's the first head coaching game I've ever coached in. I couldn't go to my grandparents' funeral in Florida, or missing my 15-year-old's confirmation last summer or last season because we're in Virginia Beach playing a football game the same day that he's making his confirmation. So I just think that you're right. People don't know what goes into it. People just see the I guess the benefits. But also, coaching is not just Division One. There's sacrifices that they make to an extent. Yeah, they make more money, but there's a lot of sacrifices that come with any level of coaching. So just understand what that actually means and what type of coach you're going to be. Are you going to be a servant leader? Are you going to be transformational? Are you a transactional? Because in my opinion, there are right ways to do it, and there are wrong ways to do it, because we coach people first and sports second. Yeah. And you're coaching emotional beings. And if you're going to be servant and transformational, then go all in.
Yeah. And you mentioned it before, but you didn't say it now. The other things you're missing is your one son playing college football. Yep. Unless he plays on a Friday night or after your season's over, the investment you're making into the Kean University football program, is sacrificing your time to watch him.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And that's got to be, as a coach, a football player, that's got to be, oh my God, that's got to cut through the core.
Oh, it's brutal.
Yeah.
There's no other way to say it.
Yeah.
But it goes back to your point earlier. We talked about that young man again, giving a text saying he doesn't want to play. Yeah. Like, no one cares. At the end of the day, they don't care, right? Because that share can be replaced. Yeah. And they just view it as part of your job. And it is, to a certain extent now, it is a one-way street. What can you do for me? How can you help me? And we all make sacrifices, right? Because these kids make financial sacrifices. They're paying for it. But at the end of the day, when it comes push to shove, I'm supposed to do this because I'm their coach. And that's the leadership position that I'm in. It's
like Lou Holtz says, 80% of the people don't care that you have your problems. And the other 20% are glad you got them.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah, because like you, Jeff, and this, whether it's your world that you live in business, like, the chair's replaceable.
Yeah.
It was here before us, and it's going to be there after us.
And it's just be great at what you do now.
That's it. One day at a time.
That's it.
Do the best you can with what you got.
So I'm going to ask you another question here. We're getting close to wrapping it up. Mm-hmm. Is, what is your most proudest moment or achievement as an athlete in college playing football, or as a coach?
Yeah, I think as a player, there's a couple. Coming out of Clifton High School, I was an offensive lineman, defensive lineman. I went out to the Division II school as a scholarship offensive lineman. And nothing against those guys, because I coach them when we need them. But I didn't want to play offense. So I go to Montclair State. I start out the first couple of weeks as a DN. I asked coach if I could play linebacker, kind of chuckled. Never played it before in my life. And then my sophomore, junior, senior year, I'm an all-conference linebacker 2 years in a row with 113 tackles. So that was a proud achievement. But you want to talk about act the way you want to become. In my mom and dad's old house, in their basement where my weight set was, I literally had in Sharpies written on the wall, like, I'm going to be one of the best linebackers I ever play at Montclair State. And I read it every day, but I didn't just read it. I believed it. And I told myself over and over I was going to be that. And maybe I wasn't the best, because there's a lot of good ones who play up there at that position. Sam Mills, guys that I played with, some really, really talented guys. Yeah. But I'll be damned if I'm not at least talked about as being one of, I hope. So that was a proud moment, because I made myself into that, like the hard work and the belief and the mindset. You could do hard things. And if you believe it, right? If you believe you think you can, you got a shot, right? But what's the old saying? Whether you think you can or you think you can't, either way, you're
Right.
right.
Yeah.
So that's probably that one. And as a coach, taking over in 2006, where, Kean at the time, we didn't have, I think it's somewhere along, it was either 12 or 15 years. I forget now because I don't fixate on as much now as I did back then. Didn't have a winning season in either 12 or 15 years. And in 2006, my first year at the helm, we go 7-4 and we win a bowl game. And then the next 7 years, we didn't have a losing season, and I didn't know what I was doing. I was 29, 30 years old. But the guys bought into me, and it's about players. Listen, at the end of the day, when you say we coach people first and sports second, I believe that. And it's also, you get players to believe players win games. Coaches don't win games. A lot of coaches think they do. We don't win games. We could screw games up. But players win games and coaches win players. And how do coaches win players? By building relationships that are meaningful through trust, respect, and love.
I love what you just said there. Coach people first, players second.
Yeah.
I'm not, I've never been a college coach. I've never been a high school. I've been my little kids' coaches, and when they were, little rec stuff, and that was pretty cool. But I think in today's world, especially in the social media world, and everything is so right out there. If something goes right or wrong, they see it within milliseconds. Is having that willingness to coach the people first. A lot of coaches, again, I'm just saying this from what I see on the social media.
Yeah.
It's more about, the team winning and accolades and all that kind of stuff. And you don't really, that's what you see, but you don't really see what's behind the scenes, like we were just talking about. And when you find a coach who's a people first, and again, I'm going to say this again, I witnessed you with your team being a people first coach, and I hope 1 million people listen to this, and maybe it helped for recruiting. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But they need to see what goes on behind those doors while it's just you and your team, and the public doesn't get to see that.
No, and listen, like, and I joke with my staff just the other day in a staff meeting. I said, listen, at the end of the day, and I mean this half jokingly and half serious, the people don't care what we do except for the 10 Saturdays in the fall, right? And now with social media, we're more subject than ever to being like, when you win, everyone loves a winner, but when you lose, like, everyone's got something to say. And again, we cannot let that affect us, because everyone's their own editor in chief now on social media. They can post whatever they want, they can say whatever they want, they can judge whatever they want, and that's okay. Like, you need to adapt, right? Because if you don't adapt, you die, right? And so when you do these things as a leader, it's not about what other people think. I could care less. And if people think that winning is not important to me, they're highly mistaken. It's the person first, and we want to win.
Yeah.
But I want to make sure that person, we're not sacrificing people first before we do that. And it's for the betterment of the people. We want to win. There's no doubt. If I didn't want to win, I wouldn't be in coaching. I don't want to, go through losing. That's not what we aspire to do.
No.
People are the most important component in this puzzle. And whether you get the support from the outside families, or you get the support from your athletic administration, whatever it might be, or the lack of, it's irrelevant. Focus on the parameters that you have and deal with what you got, which is your players, player development. Focus on your players.
That's it. Well, Dan, this has been, a great hour spending with you. My last question is there anything else that I haven't talked about or brought up or asked that you think we should talk about before we end the show?
I just think as you gain more experience and you grow older, you gain a deeper perspective on things, right? And I just wish that if I can ever go back and have this perspective that we have now as through the life experiences, Jeff, I think the one thing that I want to leave with is, we say this all the time to our players too, when things are going well or they're going rough, like, 3 things once gone, you never get back, man. You don't get the time back. The time where you are right here, right now at 18, 19, 20, or 50, this moment in time, you're never getting back. Can't rewind it. You don't get a redo. It's it. So 3 things once gone, you get back: time, words, opportunity. Once you spit words out, especially in today's day and age on social media, you throw it out there, it's not coming back, man. So be careful what you say, because you could say sorry, but sorry doesn't always change things.
No.
People might forgive you, but they're not going to forget.
Not going to
right.
forget.
So I think the time, words, and opportunity are really something important, because the opportunity that you have, whether you're a starter, whether you're a backup, whether you're doing well right now in your career as a salesperson, just because you're having a bad day doesn't mean tomorrow's going to be a bad day. Just because you had a great day doesn't mean tomorrow's going to be a great day. Like, to keep perspective and be consistent, because the only thing you get is today.
Yeah.
Every day is another chance, another opportunity to get better. It's not just
Yeah.
another day. And if you can take that perspective on, where if you live your life that way, like, I think your perspective changes at 18 and not waiting to get the life experience that you can go through.
Right. Everybody thinks they always have so much more time, you know, and they don't realize how much shorter time gets as you get older.
And it's not guaranteed. I mean, look at all the horror stories you hear about,
Yeah.
car accidents,
Yeah.
you leave the house, you don't come back home, you go for a walk, you have a heart attack. Like,
Yeah.
there's just so many more things to be appreciative of. And today's a blessing. You wake up and you do the best you can with it.
Yeah. In a blink of an eye, things can change, right?
Yes, sir.
So when does camp open?
August 14th. So we have about 9 days, and we're reporting. And the hardest part about that is, unfortunately, we cross our fingers and we hope that these kids have done something the last 3 months, because they're not with our strength and conditioning coaches over 3 months. So we got to hope that they went home and all those things we talked about before, self-discipline, work ethic.
Yeah.
There's a lot of distractions in the world for today's kid.
Yep. And when's the first game?
September 7th, on the road at Morrisville on the black turf.
Oh boy. All right.
12 o'clock.
Oh my God. How hot's that going to be?
It'd probably be at least 15 to 20 degrees hotter, I'm sure.
Holy, they have black turf?
Black turf. That was the team
Wow.
that came out a year or two ago and was all over ESPN and Barstool and all that. So listen,
Okay.
it's got 120 yards on it, just like ours. So I don't care
That's
about
it.
that. Let's prepare and make sure we don't waste opportunities.
No. Well, Dan, listen, I appreciate you being on. I love everything you're doing down at Kean University. You're a first-class coach, you know, and again, I'm saying it again, I witnessed it, I watched it, I was part of it for a millisecond of what you've been in, but I get to see it, and it was great. I wish you the best of luck, winning season, win some championships, add to the list, but as you say, is lead the kids first, and you'll be the coach second, right? You know, and that's your core values are fight. It's incredible. I love it. I'm going to put it on the wall here. I'm going to show people here, and I'm going to incorporate that here. I love it.
I love it, Jeff. Listen, thanks for having me on. It's easy to talk to you, man. It's
Yeah.
especially when it's about, football and the
Yeah.
things that come natural to both of us. So it was a pleasure being on, and I really appreciate you having me.
Well, loved having you, and I can't wait to see your results of the season.
Absolutely. Sounds good.
You got it. See you soon.
Thanks, Jeff.